I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. I do want to get to Larry Johnson's interview. In Larry Johnson's interview Friday, man, we were all over the place. But it started with the first question. Well, I mean, it wasn't actually a question. It was more of a statement. But anyway, here it is.
Well, Larry, you're here.
Larry, you're here. All right, then came question number one.
Get one more in you, a couple more in you. How much longer we got?
You got one more in you, couple more in you. How much longer we got? Now, this is a perfectly acceptable line of questioning if this is someone who's publicly contemplated retirement. Larry never has. So when you say something like that, what you're saying is, you're old. I think you should be thinking about retirement. What are your thoughts on that? I was pretty taken aback by that. I thought it was pretty rude. I wasn't the only one.
There's going to be some. Larry Johnson's always going to be battling the rumors. Like the first question he got on Friday, another year, huh? Is basically the question. And it's like, and I think there was the same thing the year before. Like, how much longer are you going to do this? And he's like, I'm here, aren't I?
Journalism on journalism fire. I love it. He paused there after the first statement. He was maybe going to get a little riled up there. That's my man, Tony Gerdeman. That is the funniest guy in Ohio State media. I love listening to that dude. Just the most dry, excellent sense of humor. The punchlines are always perfect, but he's hysterical. But Larry answers the very classless question with a very classy answer, of course.
God said I got to stop.
Did you think this offseason of going out on top, winning a national championship, those classes, I know how important those guys were, you, Jack and JT, maybe that was the time? What was the thought process for you this offseason?
Never thought about it. It's just on to the next guys, a group of guys that I brought in. I think about, get those guys out. So it's a nice thought. It wasn't my thought.
Never thought about it. Never thought about retiring and going out on top with Jack and JT and Ty and Tyleek. And in most cases, when we listen to these coaches behind the microphone, I always try to put myself in their shoes to look for the motive. Why are they saying what they're saying? Is there someone that maybe they're talking to and in an indirect way, or is there something that they're trying to hold off, which in Larry's case is always going to be negative recruiting about him retiring. So if he puts out, I thought about it and blah, 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 that's in Deuce Gerald's and Aiden Harris's Snapchat in 35 seconds that Larry Johnson was thinking about retiring. So Larry has to say, no, I never thought about it. Do you think he thought about it? I honestly don't think he did. Like, some folks are just wired differently. And part of me believes that Larry is one of these dudes that's like, look, man, this is what I do. I work. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. It's going to be an interesting situation moving forward. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Tony Washington Jr. now in that room. Tony Washington Jr., I like what he adds from a rushing perspective, but it's not some obvious heir apparent kind of guy that we were all kind of hoping for. You bring in that heir apparent kind of guy. Doesn't matter if you're negative recruiting against Larry. Doesn't matter if Larry announces that he's going to be retiring in a year or two, because now every recruit that you're bringing in knows, like, we got the next guy right here, and we like him just as much. So when Larry leaves, we've got this guy. And it just doesn't appear to me like Washington Jr. is that type of dude. It doesn't appear to me like he has that kind of. Now, there are some positions where I think it's a good thing to, promote from within. If you got a guy who's a real winner and a real star. There's others where I think that they're a little bit of star power really, really helps. And when it comes to defensive line, I think it's one of those positions where you want that name brand recognition when you're trying to go after the best of the best in the country. So that's my thoughts on that. But getting into what Larry had to say about some of the players on the team, our buddy Dylan Davis brought up an interesting question that I hadn't really thought about. Last year at this time, Larry brought up Joshua Mickens, unprompted, wasn't asked, and talked about Joshua Mickens, who a lot of people had kind of forgotten about. And Larry brought him up, said he was kind of coming out of nowhere. So Dylan asked him about Joshua Mickens.
Question, you mentioned Josh Mickens, the guy who was coming on pretty quickly. Where did he end the season, and how close do you think he is to being a guy who's going to factor in?
I think as we move forward, I think he has to factor in. You know, I think every guy is factoring right now because of the depth, right? So we lose some great players, and now we're going to get these young guys ready fast, and so we're going to need all hands on deck.
If you can't hear, and I know it's quiet. Here's the funny thing: Larry is a very soft-spoken guy. Now, when those coaches sit down, doesn't matter who it is, they ask that, they always ask him, "Can you move up to the microphone?" They don't say a thing to Larry. They don't say a thing. You go ahead, big man. You sit right there. But Larry, about Mickens, didn't have a whole lot to say. About Will Smith Jr., said that they have moved him to one tech, trying to find the right position for him. And, I don't think anybody thinks that either of those guys are going to be, guys that break out this year. But they did talk about Jason Moore. And Jason Moore, obviously someone that the Buckeyes really are kind of relying on this year. 6'6", 290, a top 50 recruit, now in year 3. I would have expected a guy of his caliber to have flashed at some point by now. He hasn't. He hasn't flashed at all. Got all the physical gifts, but I can't recall him looking like a stud football player on the field, in practice footage, in a game, in any of the time he's had. And this is the year that he's really going to be relied upon. Like, we need something out of Jason Moore this year. And this is what Larry said. He told him. They've had this conversation. Like, this is your year. We've built the foundation. So what are we going to see out of Jason Moore? I certainly hope it's something. And then, of course, they talked about transfer from the FCS, Logan George.
What made you want to bring in Logan George, and how do you see him fitting into this?
Well, you look for a fit, right? The most important thing, he fit. Does he fit our defense? Does he fit our scheme? Does he fit our culture? That's all important when you bring a guy into the court. It's got to be a fit. And sitting, talking to him, talking to the family, talking to his coach was really raved about him as a player. And then once we sit down and met and talk, I felt like he fit our room. Can rush, he plays hard, and everything you want to see, you got to have, he has. And so I'm looking forward to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Larry, was there anything he's from the same hometown as Tommy Togiai? I didn't know there was any connection.
Same high school.
Yeah. Was there anything with the Togiais that helped you learn more about Logan?
Well, not necessarily about learn, but I know the head coach really well. And the minute I picked up the phone and called him, he gave rave reviews as a player, as a person, and that was a hint for me, because you're going to have some information. And the head coach just couldn't love him, because couldn't stop talking about him as a player and a person. So when I brought him in and talked to mom and dad and set him down, wow, it was pretty good.
What do you need to see from a guy like him to know that can translate to Ohio State? Because this is actually quite literally top of the sport right now. Yeah. So how do you know that that's going to translate from FCS?
Based on what I've seen thus far, his skill set is there. It's going to translate. It's going to translate. If not, I made a huge mistake.
If not, I made a huge mistake. He's saying if Logan George's skill set doesn't translate, I've made a huge mistake. And the way he answered the question gave me a whole lot of confidence that what Logan George is showing them so far is really good stuff. And that's obviously great news on a defensive line, especially on the edge. That's not very deep. All right, let's get to the controversy, which obviously you've probably heard now, that Larry came out and said that he and Jim Knowles never had a problem, and that the reason the media thinks that they had a problem was they think that Larry is a 4-3 guy specifically, and he's not. He's whatever the team needs kind of guy, and the media doesn't understand that. They think that it's all about, okay, Knowles is 3-4, I'm 4-3, and he went on and on and on about that for a good amount of time. And my contention was that was never the issue. The issue was always about removing one of Larry's guys from the field. And he pretty much confirmed that. He went on and on about how, you can just take Kenyatta and stand him up, and now you're in a 3-4, because you don't want to, you don't want to keep substituting. You can't do that every play. So I'll just let him tell you.
Well, 4-3, you take a 4-3, everybody confuses that I'm a 4-3 guy, but really, you take a 4-3, you take ends, stand them up, you can slide to a 3-4 just like that. And that's multiple defense without changing any personnel. And so it's a 4-man brunt, but we can go to a 3-man, a 4-man, a 5-man, 6-man in a heartbeat with the guys on the field. So I think that we've been multiple, but we keep saying it's a 4-man front, but it can be interchangeable 4-man front. Yeah, that's it. It's all awesome, man. It's how you look at it. The 4 guys can stay on the field, and you can pop JT or pat KJ up. And next thing you know, it's like a 3-4. But it's 4 guys on the field playing that's been in the game. And so I think that we kind of lose how you're going to play defense now, because you can't substitute every play to get a new personnel. So those guys got to be able to play from a 4-man to a 3-man or whatever happens. You have to be ready to do that.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. That's it right there. And that's exactly why it was Jack Sawyer who was playing the Jack when they played the Jack, because it was one of Larry's guys. And what happened when it didn't work out with Jack? They totally abandoned it, right? Because it was one of those guys from that room, or it was nobody else. And you'll remember the year after that, Larry totally dismissed the Jack like he didn't even know what it was. We played that press conference. I don't know. What's he play? Is he in the linebacker room? It's quite obvious that there was definitely 2 stubborn guys who believed that their way was the best way. I mean, I don't know how anybody could deny that, but I'll tell you why. Like when we talk about people and personalities and stuff, it was probably never an issue to Larry because Larry won. Larry won every one of the battles. His guys always stayed on the field. At any rate, it was pretty funny. Now, we then got to everybody's favorite topic. And the favorite topic we've had for the last 3 years, which is...
Do you think you'll have more opportunities to coach CJ Hicks this year? What would you envision for a role for him?
Well, he's with me right now. So CJ is with me right now and trying to learn how to play the position. Transition, he's right. We want to use him first and second. And once we accomplish that as we go,
because of his versatility, going to stand
being in space, that's different. And once we accomplish as we go, then I think he'll give a chance to give us some great depth and really do some good things for us. I'm excited about him because he's really excited about the position change.
Larry, when you talk about being multiple, how impactful can a guy like CJ be?
CJ Hicks. CJ Hicks. Larry says he's moved down to his room. A lot of Buckeye fans very excited that Larry had revealed that because they talked to James Laurinaitis earlier on, and James played dumb. James, I don't know. We'll see when we get back. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on with CJ. And Larry's like, oh, yeah, he's been working with me. But the CJ Hicks questions took up a big chunk of the press conference. So Larry bringing him down into his room, and he's going to teach him how to play defensive end, not some pass rush specialist. He's going to be a stand-up defensive end. And I have heard our Abdul Carter, our Micah Parsons. Finally, we get to see what Baron Browning would have done if they'd have used him the right way at Ohio State. And last year, the conversation about CJ Hicks, and I was arguing with a lot of people about this. So we knew Sonny Styles, when he moved down from safety, if it was going to be him and CJ pitted up against each other, that Sonny was going to win that battle, despite CJ being in year 3 at linebacker. And a lot of people were irritated about that because why was Cody Simon seemingly locked into the Mike role? This is Ohio State. We should be competing for all these spots. Cody wasn't a starter last year. Why isn't Gabe Powers involved in this? And because of that, people were slamming Cody, which I thought was just absurd. CJ Hicks was a 5-star and thought to be more dynamic than Cody. And that is all this was. Coming off of Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg, people wanted these 2 freaky athletes, CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles, to be next to each other because that's what we envisioned when they came in. And nobody thought Sonny was actually going to remain at safety. But CJ in year 3 fights it out with Sonny. We heard a lot of positive stuff about CJ all spring, guys. Remember, he was getting it. It was clicking. It was finally clicking for CJ. That was a whole lot of shows we watched over the spring last year. Best blitzer on the team, but there's a lot more to play in linebacker, and he was getting it. So we start the season. He plays 30 snaps right off the rip, and it's immediately obvious that he's not close to the level needed to play linebacker. I said it the blowback from that was insane. I remember it. Like, people were mad at me. I wasn't back in town. It was very evident when his snaps went from 30 to like 6 in the first 3 games that he wasn't getting it done at linebacker, and he very quickly fell down the depth chart. There were so many moments where I was watching this guy on film from the end zone view, the all 22, and it wasn't just that he looked like he was stuck in the mud with decisions, which we all know was an issue. It was the patty cake this guy played with his hands. It was uncomfortable to watch from someone we've been told has these dynamic athletic traits. He couldn't tackle. Like, I couldn't, it didn't even comprehend to me that this guy that we have been told and led to believe is some dynamic athlete played football like this. Baron Browning, this is a guy, like, I almost find it insulting when people compare him to Baron Browning. Baron Browning got himself on the field, got himself 70 tackles and 16 tackles for loss and 6 sacks through his 3rd year. CJ had 17 tackles and 2 sacks in his career. Let me propose this. I think that we can all agree that the baseline here, many of you tell me you don't care about stars. If player X comes into Ohio State and plays the same position for 3 years, in year 3, this guy is 5th string. In year 3, playing behind Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Gabe Powers. After 3 years, then gets moved to another position his senior year. What is the reason there is any talk about player X at all? What's the reason? It's because he was a 5-star and perceived to be an excellent athlete. So if you're excited about Hicks, about this move, it is, don't you dare tell me it's because this guy got 2 sacks on 2 blitzes. It's because he was a 5-star and perceived to be an excellent athlete. I would propose to you that he has never been the athlete that he's been touted to be. Never. There's 2 different kinds of athletes, right? There's the ones that we can clearly see that athleticism on the field, maybe they don't test well, but when they get out there, man, they got that football speed. And then there's the workout warriors, the combine warriors, who maybe they don't show it on the field, but wow, you get them in the gym, it really comes out. Well, it's one or the other. CJ doesn't show it on the field. What's he show it on the testing? We do that at Ohio State, shuttles and dashes and bench presses and feats of strength and vertical jumps and broad jumps. There's 15 boards in the Woody, 15 of them. Testing, you got the top 10 in every single category. In those categories, run the gauntlet from big man to small man. You're going to have an advantage in one of them or several of them. And they keep those up there all year. And the last time I was there, I took a picture of every single one of those boards because I wanted to find out, all right, who are the players that are the most athletic, the most versatile on the most ones of these boards? And of the linebackers, Sonny Styles had his name on 2 of those boards. Now, there were 2 players who had their name on 5 of those boards, the most athletic on the team. And it was pretty surprising. But Sonny had his name on 2. Cody Simon, the only one of those linebackers that made 3 of those boards. CJ Hicks wasn't on a single one. So if he doesn't show it in athletic testing and he doesn't show it on the field, this guy's just been overrated his whole career. That's it. He got a good jump on a couple of sacks, and that's all we've ever seen. I can line you up 25 plays that show average athleticism out of CJ Hicks by Ohio State standards. And I understand that 90% of people are going to disagree because there's a whole lot of hope factor because of what this guy was supposed to be. You heard Larry. Larry's teaching him how to play stand-up defensive end. He's got to be well-rounded. He's got to be able to do it all to earn playing time. I'll remind you, he's a very poor tackler. This dude got ran over by Marshall's quarterback. You remember he had a free run at Hudson Card and got juked out of his shoes to the point he was on the ground. And I'm supposed to believe that that guy is going to take away snaps from Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and Logan George. He's the secret weapon, the 5th string linebacker in year 3. Is he any better than Josh Mickens? What makes you think he's better than Josh Mickens? Because Mickens wasn't a 5-star? Like, that's literally it. That's it. Prediction number 1. Logan George will have more sacks than CJ Hicks this year. And we're going to hear all of spring questions about CJ Hicks over and over and over again. Remember what Matt Patricia, when he came in, what did he say? I'm looking at Arvell. I'm looking at Sonny. Like, if they're doing anything special, it's not CJ going in that role. It's those two who are both better athletes and better football players and better tacklers. And you think so too, because if you had one guy, you need to send one of those three guys on a blitz to win the game. Who you picking? Not one of you's picking CJ Hicks. Get out of here with that. Anyway, I love CJ Hicks, the man. When they had last year the special needs kids, these special needs kids come and practice with them. They interviewed him. You could see the joy on his face, and I respect the hell out of that. Seth McLaughlin too. I don't forget things like that. And then he talked about Cody Simon, and he said, I love that man. And it was so sincere. I was like, man, this is an awesome dude. And I'm not saying any of this to bash him. This is more about the media creation that has pumped this guy to the fact that we've had to hear about him so disproportionately to what he's done at Ohio State, so much more so than a guy like Arvell Reese, who's about to potentially be an All-American. And I got to hear about CJ Hicks again. Shows, every other show. CJ Hicks is doing it. Dude, I'm telling you, this is the most overhyped player that we've had at Ohio State in a decade. Like, it's that serious. I don't get it. I don't understand what nobody else sees. I'm going to be on an island here. I hope that he proves me wrong, because then it means that he has blown up and become the NFL player that he was supposed to be and really helped the team. And I'll happily look like an idiot at that point. But I think it's everybody else who's looking like an idiot running show after show after show about CJ Hicks again, like we just did this 2 years in a row.